Okay, thank you, Mr. Hisham, joining again for this webinar. Actually, is this the second or the third webinar we are doing together?
Third one. It's the third one. Yep.
Okay, so every 2 months we have been doing webinars. We have done different webinars about different subjects. So today we are going to talk about backup efficiencies. Today we are going to talk about backup. Especially when we say backup, we will talk mostly about Dell backup. As everybody knows, Dell has the biggest market share in backup. So Dell is the biggest backup vendor in the world. Dell's market share is double than the competition. I mean, double than the nearest competitor in terms of software and hardware, in terms of storage and software. If somebody is going to talk about backup, Dell is the right company to talk about in this world, actually, because of this huge install base all over the countries. As GlassHouse, we have been supporting MEAT region, Middle East, Africa, and Turkey. So we have offices in Johannesburg, we have office in Qatar, Doha, and we have also office in Istanbul. So we are supporting the whole region, and we have hundreds of backup customers. We have around 250 contracted customers as GlassHouse. As Dell, of course, it's thousands and thousands customers. Today, Mr. Hisham is going to start. He will have a presentation around 20 minutes. After his presentation, I will have another presentation like 15 minutes. So in total, we are expecting the session to be around 35 minutes. In total, maybe 40 minutes. That's our plan for today. Yeah, I think we can start.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hakan. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, definitely the value of the solutions we are presenting in these webinars. It seems that is very interesting for our customers, and the customers are demanding more and more of these sessions where we can educate and share our technology, do some refresh on the technology that we have with our customers, and not just in the Gulf. I've heard it from my friends in South Africa. They have listened to our webinars, and they have been also, enjoying these sessions as well. So if you allow me, I'll just present my screen.
Yeah, this webinar is going to be on live both in South Africa and Gulf region at the same time.
Of course. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So thanks again for GlassHouse team for arranging for these webinars. And for the people who don't know me, my name is Hisham Mazher, and I am the Data Protection and Cyber Recovery Solutions System Engineer here in Dell Technologies Gulf. And we've been working with our Titanium partner, GlassHouse Gulf, to provide the services for our customers that leverage the best technology, as Mr. Hakan mentioned, in the market for backup and recovery from Dell Technologies. Today's title of our today's session is to learn how Dell Data Protection Solutions can provide the backup efficiencies, how we as Dell can increase your backup efficiencies with our products, and definitely with our patents and technologies that we have embedded in our software and hardware stack. So speaking about, to put things into perspective, there is a very significant question that we always ask to our customers. Does the level of your data protection align with the value of your data? Obviously, the answer sometimes is not sure, we don't know, and we want Dell to help us. Digital transformation have led to major issues, and most of our customers, and even the customers who do not use Dell Technologies, have suffered from this transitional pressure from regulations to do the digital transformation. This produced areas that we must address in these organizations to succeed. In a major area here is to give value to the data. And the first challenge that it came up with, the digital transformation came up with, is we need to unlock the data that is trapped in what we call silos. There are a lot of data centers that have different silos inside them, different small data centers inside them. And as the data grow, the new storage systems that are brought into your data center, they come into place. They cause lack of visibility across multiple applications. And due to the application need, we need to add more storage, and we add more silos, and we add more backups, and we add more storages and replication. The next challenge we usually see in most of our infrastructure customers, that we need to simply keep with the data growth. Once the data grow, from the management overhead, the cost that it will bring to your infrastructure, to the speed to add capacity to this, it's very problematic sometimes. Even data protection becomes more problematic than before. As backup windows shrink, you may need to strain the production systems sometimes from growing too much. Yes, data can be incredibly valuable, but optimizing the infrastructure and process is the core system here, or the core question here. It is difficult to continue with a digital transformation journey if you don't find the value out of your data. The third challenge that we usually see is, as data increasingly leverage across the organization, its value increases. Now, with the digital transformation, all customers ask Dell to help them create a value out of the data that they have. Why do we mean by value? Value by analyzing this data, by keeping it in a backup and safe and multiple locations replicated, but definitely optimizing the cost. And once we talk to IT managers, usually the discussion comes into, I don't want an IT outage. I don't want my data to be lost. I want revenue out of my data by maintaining the system uptime and definitely decreasing my RPOs and RPOs. And finally, once all the obstacles that we have discussed before have been addressed, we come to the most critical challenge: creating a business impact from this data. Data is what we call is an incredible asset. It's your new oil, but only the context of how we use this data to solve real problems is the opportunity for us as Dell to create business face to this data manageability. So what is Dell doing at the moment? Industry's best protection storage platform have been produced by Dell EMC. And after the merge between EMC and Dell a couple of years back, we have merged our own patents, over 120,000 patents from our design solutions, software and hardware stacks, brought the best data protection storage platform into our customers' data centers, with a supportability of multiple applications writing simultaneously to the same single platform, utilizing what we call a global deduplication algorithm. You just set the system and you forget it, as peace of mind, we call it. There are a lot of built-in features in the system, and we will discuss those in the next slides. But the main important factor here is to call that you have an investment protection for your backup systems in your infrastructure. No matter what application is writing to the data domain system or to the storage system, it will be supported. Other applications are also supported, other orchestrators are also supported, but what we call is our end-to-end software stack will be able to help you, Mr. Customer, into your data protection strategy and giving the value out of the data protection that you have applied in your infrastructure. So today we are presenting the Dell EMC PowerProtect DD series appliances, set of appliances that brings the ultimate protection storage to your infrastructure. We speak about the next generation data domain from #1 data protection appliance and software, setting the bar very high for data management from edge to core to cloud. And in one of the IDC reports, you would see that based on the combined revenue between the 2019 and 2020 and 2021, Dell EMC, with the coverage that we have, the tracker that we have for our purpose-built backup appliance, reach over 85% of coverage globally. and speaking about big number of 64 to 65 to 75% of coverage just in the US. And this is very important for big enterprises and big customers. Speaking about Power Protect series or the data domain series, it will reduce the data loss by making it fast and secure and most efficient as much as the technology now is providing. It supports what we call extensive cloud ecosystem to deliver industry-leading multi-cloud data protection, to be able for you to move around hybrid, on-premise, and cloud at the same time with the same platform that we have provided for you. So since the title today of our session is learning how our systems from Dell can provide efficiency, we are today explaining and educating our customers about the embedded features that they will get from day zero from our appliances. So when we speak about deduplication efficiency, we speak about Dell Power Protect data domain, how efficiently it uses the source and inline deduplication to optimize for performance and for capacity. Why is this important for our customers? Because we are speaking about optimizing the performance on top of the storage that you have, but at the same time, reducing the amount of time your backup will take. And obviously, we're speaking about RPOs and the RTOs here. We want to help our customers to start a backup, to finish a backup, and to completely make sure that it is recoverable at a time, and the system is not compromised, at the same time secured, with a very minimal time that we have for performance and capacity to be optimized as well, with the smallest footprint that you can store on your storage appliance. Another important differentiator for our data domain storage system versus other backup storage system, if we can call it this way, is our data domain, data integrity check, or data invulnerability architecture. As you can see on the screen, this slide would tell you that the data invulnerability architecture, how it works. It works as the data is sent to data domain system. A checksum is taken of everything that's about to be stored. The system checks that it has already stored or not on the system. This is the handshake that's happening between the client side and the domain side. If the data is not present on the storage side, we write it to the disk. Then the backup IO is internally read back from the disk. And ultimately, we do a rechecksum where we know, and the system knows, operating system knows, that this data is now written to the disk. Next, the system compares to the original checksum, take it to the right time. This allows the system to know and make sure that the data is reachable. Where are the blocks written on which disks and which set of disks, and the data within those blocks that is correct or not. So all these steps, you as an administrator or you as a system engineer, you will not see how complicated kind of the system goes into multiple checksum or self-healing mechanism inside the system. And once we talk about self-healing, it means that there is minimal corruption happening on the data. However, the data handshake between the deduplication from the client side to the hardware side or to the storage landing zone, we call it, will be very minimal. And ultimately, this happens completely on the system without you dealing with it. The system does this by itself. And ultimately, this is a complete cycle, 360 happening every day. You are doing the cleaning, the expiration of the data, the fragmentation and verification of the data to do a self-healing mechanism. And all of this happens simultaneously with all the data domains that you might have in your system while you have it in your production or your disaster recovery site, having all of this running in the background without you kind of dealing with it. But make sure that you know this technology, because this is our solutions to create efficiency out of your data protection solutions. Another important feature that we call in our data domain systems is what we call the SISL infrastructure, or it's the stream informed segment layout. Data domain has developed a proven architecture to deliver what we call a high throughput deduplication storage system. as much as possible providing economical storage hardware where we do the summation in the memory-based structure to help as much as possible identification of new segments. Once you write a new data on your production environment and you want to do the data protection for it, you need some sort of an algorithm that will look into the details of the data and the data blocks to identify what are the new segments. But if this is written to a storage, then the data checksum and the data new segments check will take more time. So what we have done in Dell, we have executed, or we have developed a solution that is called the SISL. It is a CPU-centric storage system where the whole system or the whole check is being done, the architecture is being done from the memory side, CPU side, before it is, or the data is written to the disk. I know that this might be some sort of a complicated factor, but this is how we guarantee for our customers how the system remains healthy, how the data blocks, because this is the most important part of it, how to make it efficient. And again, we go back to the first slide, which is creating a value out of the data. Other deduplication methods might be more burden, or putting the burden on the disk level. However, in our data domain system, we increase the throughput by providing the stream informed segment layout in the CPU format. Usually we talk about some traditional backups versus what we do in data domain system. And this is where I can tell you that traditional backup software, they do not use what we have developed as our patent, the DD Boost. Before the DD Boost or without the DD Boost, a system needs to make a backup across the LAN to be sent to the storage side. If it's not data domain, or if it's data domain but not utilizing the DD Boost, all the steps will happen on the storage side. Doing ID segmentation, handshake, checking the uniqueness of the data if I have the data or not, doing some compression, and then writing this data to the disk. All these put more burden and workload on the data domain side or on the storage side. However, what we have developed in our systems, which is what we call the DD Boost, the distribution or the steps for distributing the data with DD Boost makes it much easier. It is designed to offload part of the data domain deduplication process between the storage and the client side, the application client side. This prevents the storage and the disk array from having to carry the full burden of the dedupe workload, because what we are sending across the line is only a partial setup or the partial of the data to be sent to your data domain. And we're speaking about this. It's very important, again, to discuss this with IT managers and system engineers as well, because we're talking about optimizing the LAN and the WAN usage. This is very important factor as well, because we are only sending minimal data between the client, application client side to the data domain or to the storage side, reducing the network bandwidth, as we call it. This is particularly the advantage when backups are being written to an offsite, to be able to share the data from one data domain to a data domain over the WAN. It's very important and very significant to what we have as a bandwidth limitation. So DD Boost will also bring bandwidth efficient replication to improve performance and reliability with a simplified disaster recovery testing speeds and speeds going back up to 50%, reducing the network bandwidth utilization by almost 97, 98%, which is a major factor for different customers that have limited connectivity between multiple sites. One of the core important features that we do in the data domain is how we deliver virtualized environment data protection. We deliver the instant access, and ultimately instant access provides the end user a fast access to the VMs that have no time to run in the production side or to restore at least the production environment. Data protection solution from Dell is a flash-enabled data domain solution that will give you instant access to the virtual machines to leverage especially large virtual machine workloads from working or running from on top of the storage that you have. It will act as a separate primary storage, but ultimately instantly accessing and booting the NFS share on site on and from directly from the backup image. You can leverage data protection copies to perform what we call critical actions on the environment before doing the actual restore in the background. Another feature that is usually requested, and this is what we help our customers to efficiently optimizing the solution for the infrastructure, is what we call the data protection for NAS. We lead in this area from a storage part and from the network attached storage areas. And some customers, or most of the customers, need backups for the NAS. And sometimes the NAS with a traditional single channel backup will be very challenging. However, what we do is that we have multi-channel backups doing or putting all the technology that we have in between the NAS and the data domain to accelerate over the LAN and the MP acceleration from multi-channel dumps from the NAS environment to the data domain environment. And also adding on top of this, the data deduplication happening from the client side to the deduplication pool. It's a single step. We know that singular recovery or granular recovery is very important for our customers that are using the NAS. And this is where our backups can be very fast and very efficient for our customers in one-step recovery format. And the last thing I would mention for our customers, that there's also a gray area sometimes protecting desktops and backups and having backups for desktops and laptops. If the customers are missing that area, we also provide in the same solution a single and scalable solution from edge to core to cloud to the data center, also to the clients, where we provide the ability to protect employee data, increasing the efficiency of the data, giving the value of the data, even if it's residing on remote PCs or remote machines. This is supported from Microsoft and Apple, of course, users. It's easy to install and it can operate in the background with no disruptivity on the end user side. And ultimately, we can tell all of our customers, all of these backups would go to the same deduplication pool to provide a global deduplication algorithm on top of all the data that we're bringing from the infrastructure side and from the user client side. Similarly, to help, to make it more powerful, the solution is also capable of doing a search. It has a search engine, and users can have their own access to their files to restore from wherever they are without even contacting the IT help desk. All of our solutions, and especially the data domain, is an open ecosystem. So we know that they can integrate with different softwares from a backup orchestrator. However, and that's my last slide to show you, is that yes, we are an open ecosystem, but our data domain series can support the backup applications, different applications, but they work better with our own solutions. And Dell end-to-end will provide you all the features that I have mentioned previously to optimize and to give you the efficiency of the data and give you the value for your data to take it forward with your digital transformation journey. And that's it from my side, Mr. Hakan.
Thank you, Isham. It was a great presentation as always.
Thank you so much.
Data domain actually has been one of the pioneers of the industry, like in the last 15 years. Before this technology, before data domain, it has been all tapes. I mean, if we were here having session all together, and it was the year 2007, 98% of the companies were using tape devices. But today, thanks to data domain, thanks to this revolution, nearly all of the companies, or let's say more than 90% of the companies, are using a disk-based backup because of this deduplication technology. So in that sense, it's also very important. Yeah, let me open my presentation. Okay, this one. It's a little slow, but opening. So when we talk about backup efficiencies, of course, we can talk about a lot of things. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So when we talk about backup efficiencies, of course, we can talk a lot of things, but we have a limited time. We don't want to make a session of like 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. It's a limited time. So we just wanted to focus on some aspects of backup. Today in this presentation, we focused on the backup disks, the storage side of backup, because, you know, in any backup environment, there are two solutions in place. One of them is the software, the other one is the hardware. You need some software to do the backup, and you need some hardware to keep the backup data. So in this presentation, in the efficiencies part, mostly we have been focused on the back side, the storage side. So what we see in the backup environments, normally in a typical backup environment, when we look at the environment, we see some data. Okay, every company has a source data. When we want to keep this data for 5 weeks, now our production data, 1 terabyte data, becomes 5 terabyte because we have 5 times copy of this data. And then we want to keep this data also months, let's say 6 months. Also, we want to keep this data for years. So our front data, our source data is 1 terabyte. But in reality, what happens is we have 25 copies of this data. Is it always 25 times? No, it depends on some companies. Some companies have a backup of 1 month. Some companies have a retention time of 6 months. Some companies have a retention time of 5 years. So it depends on the company. But in a typical company, it's generally 25 times the production data. So it's huge data. When we look at the data increase in these companies since 2010, the data is increasing exponentially. Okay, if the data is increasing that fast, what about backup? I mean, I had 10 terabytes of data. I had this much backup data, and my data has been 15 terabytes. My backup data also increased a lot. That was the main reason the companies used to use tape devices, tape cartridges before disk-based backup, because there wasn't any deduplication or these kind of things. Thanks to data domain, that has been a deduplication technology. So in my case, it was the first time I heard this technology was 2008. Of course, it started much earlier, but since 2008, all the companies are moving to disk-based and deduplication technology for their backup storage. They are not using tape library, at least for the short term. They are not using tape cartridges, but they are taking their data to these disks. Why data domain is the pioneer of this revolution? Why companies move to data domain in terms of disk backup? Because of the huge deduplication. This is one of the reasons. It compresses the data, deduplicates the data a lot, much more than any other company in the sector. Secondly, it's secure. Some companies does it, but they are not as good as deduplicating, compressing as much as data domain, or they are not that much secure. So when you keep the data, when you back up the data, when you copy the data to data domain, as you are using very little disk space, it means much less power, much less cooling, much less space, much less maintenance, management, much less errors. That was the main reason under data domain success. So when we look at the data domain portfolio, actually we see 4 main products and 1 virtual edition. You can, of course, have virtual edition on your data center or on cloud. And in terms of data domain, we have currently 4 main storage systems. Any company can choose any of them. And as you said, Hisham, the companies do not need to use Dell backup software. They can use other products, any backup software, they can just keep their backup in these storage solutions. So they have all the benefits. When we look at the market shares, actually this is a slide I prepared 6-7 years ago. If you can look at the market shares, the market shares has been more than 50% in the last 5-6 years. So it's a huge, it has been a huge market share since 2009. Even when we look at the last year, this is the market share I have currently, data domain still has 50% of the market all over the world. In most of countries, it's even larger, but it's a product, it's a solution, it's a storage any company uses. So we said they can use this storage for efficient backup, for efficient data applications, so efficient capacity usage. They can use the storage with any backup software. But when you look at the data application and compression rates, if you use it with Dell backup solution, you have much higher data application ratio, much higher compression ratio. So if you have any other backup software, anyone, and you have data domain, if you change your backup software to Dell, it means your capacity is going to be half. It's an enormous benefit for the companies. So that's one of the main reasons under Dell's success in the market. So I just want to say also a couple of words about continuous data protection. Normally what we do is we do backup once in a day. I mean, every evening we do the backups, but Dell portfolio also has a continuous data protection solution, which means you can continuously backup your data, replicate your data, either synchron or asynchron, which means in terms of disaster, you can restore not only yesterday's backup, but you can restore 5 minutes ago, 1 minute ago, 3 hours ago. So I believe this is also an important slide any company would consider besides doing backup, continuous data protection. This is also something very important, I believe, for the sector. To summarize, actually, as Mr. Hisham already passed over these slides, there are lots of reasons. Dell is the biggest backup vendor in the world. Why I give a lot of importance to this one? Because if hundreds, thousands of companies are trusting this company, there has to be a reason. Not everyone would be in the wrong direction. So if most of the companies are going one side, there should be a reason. And most of the time that the reason is in two aspects, both in technically and both in terms of cost. They go this direction because it's cost effective. They go this direction because it has higher technology. So as we said, biggest market share in the world. Dell has been in the leaders quadrant in the last 20 years of IDC. Dell always has been in the right upper side of this leaders quadrant, which means, if you look at the leaders quadrant 10 years ago, it was a different picture. If you look at it 5 years ago, it was a different picture. If you look at the same quadrant 20 years ago, you will see completely different companies. So you will consider that if you invest on Dell, it means like it has been in the last 20 years, in the next 5 years, in the 10 years, in the next 20 years, probably Dell is going to be in the leaders quadrant as well, while most of the companies in that quadrant is changing their places. So that's one of the reasons you can keep trusting on Dell backup. Dell has a working and powerful full backup solution. Of course, this is the main reason under Dell's market share. Dell is the leading backup vendor in Gulf and Africa region, and very strong ground in Gulf and South Africa, both in terms of sales and technical presence. Dell has a lot of people in any country in this region, which means if you have a problem, you can find the vendor here. Even half of the backup companies do not have solid presence in these countries. They don't have their name or their shop. So why GlassHouse? Actually, so far we have been talking about Dell Technologies and Dell Backup. Why Dell Backup? The first one is GlassHouse is one of the biggest Dell Titanium service partners in MEAT region. When I say MEAT, it means Middle East, Africa, and Turkey. GlassHouse is the biggest service partner of the Dell in terms of backup. GlassHouse is awarded the best Dell service partner 7 times in the last 9 years in the region. Customer satisfaction is very important for us. We do amazing job. If any company works with us in terms of backup, I mean, they are satisfied with the service. That's what happened this year. That's what happened last year. That's what happened 10 years ago. Most of our customers are long-term customers. We started working them, let's say, in 2008, 2010, 2013, and it's 2022, and we are still continuing to work with them because they are satisfied with the service and they are satisfied with the Dell backup solutions. We are actively supporting more than 200 companies in their backup environment. It's around 250 companies. We are supporting many banks, many telecom companies, financial institutions, logistic companies, holdings. So we have customers in every sector. So which is good for you. If we are going to do an SQL backup for you, we already know how to backup SQL. If we are going to do Oracle Restore or SAP Restore or any kind of Exchange Restore, we already know it because we have a lot of tens of customers where we are already backing up their Exchange or their Informix or their Sybase or any software they are using. So the team has an enormous experience. They are all experts, especially Dell Backup. If any company is going to give you support, if any company is going to install Dell Backup, it's GlassHouse because we have enormous experience when we have a lot of experts. In terms of the number of experts, we have more than 25 Dell Backup consultants. This is important. These people only do Dell Backup. So when you can go to another company, they will say they have a backup consultant, they can do backup, but that guy is also doing storage. That guy is also doing network. That guy is also doing security. That guy is doing everything. He's also doing backup. In our case, our backup consultants are only doing backup and only doing Dell Backup. So these 25 people, either they are in the morning in one company doing their installation or afternoon in another company giving support to them in terms of, anything. So our backup consultants are backup consultants. We use them as backup consultants. That's what I want to emphasize. What we do as GlassHouse, we handle more than 8,000 customer calls every year. And these calls are only with Dell, only with Dell related. So which means we know how to handle customers, we know how to answer, we know how to solve the problems. So we have an enormous call center or support center for Dell Backup in GlassHouse, which means I can give the support in South Africa, in Qatar, any place you want, either remotely or on site. So yeah, that was actually the end of my presentation as well. Yeah, let me, thank you again. So it's 42, it's, perfect. So 3 minutes earlier than we expected. So what we want to say is if you need a backup solution, Dell is the right vendor. If you need a support or partner, service partner, GlassHouse is the right service and support partner for you. Hisham, do you want to add anything?
No, actually, thank you so much, Mr. Hakan. I just received 1 or 2 questions on the chat.
Yeah, you can write your questions as well on the chat.
So just to answer the question from the team here, asking about the supportability for new workloads and Kubernetes. Yes, obviously our solution, software and hardware, can integrate and can protect the latest technology in the containers, which is Kubernetes with whatever flavor that you would have. You might have a vanilla flavor from Kubernetes. You might have Red Hat OpenShift. All the technologies are supported. Yes, obviously there is some checksum that needs to be done related to the compatibility, but in a nutshell, yes, it is supported. And one more question I received about the deduplication rates. Deduplication is very important in data domain. Higher deduplication we see when we get deduplication or when we get the solution end-to-end from Dell. So let's give it an example. If you do have Veeam, let's say with data domain, whereas the storage is data domain, you might reach to a level that you will get 16 to 17x of reduction ratio. While if you have an end-to-end technology solution, software and hardware stack from Dell Technologies, you might reach over 50 times the reduction ratio. That's an important factor here. It really affects when it is a big environment, when an enterprise is optimizing their cost on their storage environment, on their backups. And when we talk about reducing the footprint of backups from 15x to 50x, it's very important in the next 2 to 3 years as a budget, if I can put it this way, study. So that would be a reply off to the question about the deduplication rates. It might vary. Sometimes it can reach over 100 if it's all virtualized environment. Sometimes it reaches 200 if the data is very similar. Once you put more and more data on the data domain with an end-to-end solution from Dell Technologies, you can have the global deduplication doing as fast and as efficient as possible, and you would see very huge reduction ratios. So back to you, Mr. Hakan. This just to answer the questions that we have on the chat.
Yeah, and another one I see for ransomware. Let me answer that one as well. Yes, data domain systems are ransomware protected. You know, any software can have some ransomware protection, but most of the time it's related with the storage capability. So data domain has its own retention lock feature, which means you can lock the data and it's protected against ransomware. So you not only buy a backup storage, but you also buy a ransomware protected backup storage. You can use it with Dell software. You can lock the data. Okay, there is also another cyber recovery solution with Dell, which is much more, it's another level. But for the data domain part, it's what I can say.
Great.
Okay. Another
Thank
question?
you, Mr. Hakan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all, Mr. Hisham.
Thank you so much.
So we are at the end of our third webinar. Thank you for joining for everyone. In case you have any questions, we will send you an email after the webinar. You can always contact with us. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hisham. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Hakan. Thank you, GlassHouse team. See you soon. Bye-bye.